Hi, I'm Brandon Mason. I'm a citizen of Delta County, and in the last couple of months here, we've had a contentious issue arise with regards to the land use codes. We've had a lot of citizens attending the meetings. A lot of people are upset, and I have some footage from the January 25th meeting, and I want to share that just in the interest of uh, helping people to understand the dynamics of what's happening and maybe how we can have better conversations with our planning commission and with the county commissioners. So this particular meeting was intended to be a work session for the planning commission of Delta County. They are responsible for working on the land use code. And the meeting was shut down. It was postponed for two reasons. Uh, they couldn't get order in the room, so they couldn't really have worked in that space. And secondly, there wasn't enough space to host everyone that was there. We had about 50 people out the door, and uh, several people commented that we needed to reschedule and get a bigger room to accommodate everyone. Now, at this point, the next meeting has been scheduled. It was actually this morning as I film this now. This is the 6th of February, and that meeting they essentially rescheduled as a Zoom call. But on the 25th, we had some informal conversations. The citizens had informal conversations with the planning commission after the meeting was postponed, and that's the footage that I'm about to share with you here. So with that, let's dive into some of the conversations that happened on the 25th. This first conversation we're going to look at is with Steve Schrock of the Planning Commission.
It's been on the books. It was passed 2 years ago. Right. So a lot of people did. A lot of people participated. But it's been on the books for 2 years. It's been in operation for 2 years. What we're doing now is amending it to tweak it to make it better. So your sign is what throws me. Well, we can't always help who knows about it. There's a lot of people that did. We had a lot of input. 2 years ago, meetings all over the county. Had all kinds of things going on. And I know what the rhetoric is out there on social media. It's not true. And the thing has been in effect for 2 years. So that's why you look like a nice lady. I thought I would ask you that question. Well, that may be, but it's not new.
It doesn't sound so much like amendment, right? It doesn't sound so much like amendment, sir.
It is. It's amended.
This next clip is going to be of Tom Kay of the Planning Commission. Tom is typically the one directing the flow of the meetings.
We had the conversation last time about the language, about what the definition, what it means to be permitted. Permitted is not a noun. It's not a permit. It's permitted, meaning it's allowed.
And so I think kind of what you're talking about, we put together a sheet of 3 questions.
It doesn't mean without
been meaning to get to updating it with some of the questions we've been getting.
So one of the major contentions of the changes in the land use code is that there are 40 instances of allowed by right that are now changed to permitted. And the people of Delta County are asking, what does that mean for me? What are the consequences in terms of the process that I will have to go through? What does that mean in terms of how my living situation might change? What may be enforced now that wasn't before? And those are big questions that could have impacts on people, which would vary based on their lifestyle, based on what structures and what circumstances they have on their land. So I think it's a complex thing to try and understand, and it really has to be done at an individual use case. But certainly the overall message that we're hearing from the public here is that we haven't really had time to digest these changes and to understand what the impact is on
And
us.
then we're sort of blamed, like, how come the government's not telling us what it is? It's really a hard balance.
I know, but we got to update how you communicate with the county at a different level.
How we communicate, the language that's in the land use code. I agree with you.
I'm talking about meetings and advertising the meetings and, you know.
I guess we have a public information officer, and that's her job.
Well, you need to talk to her and ask her to do a better job. And then the addresses, I mean.
Well, I don't know. You're the first one to say that. I just show up, shut up, and go to the place where I go.
And then it's really hard to find the addresses in the Delta County. It should be on the first page.
And we'll pick something else. You know.
And maybe talk to your web designer and say, hey, we need to announce where the meetings are going to be and the time right on the first page.
So I could probably say this is the first time this room has never been bigger.
I know, but this is important to all of us because it affects our businesses.
It does, yeah, I think you.
So this feels like a pretty straightforward request from a citizen to be more transparent in the way the county communicates their meetings, their meeting notes, their meeting agendas, and what the address and time of the meetings is. I agree with that.
It's hard to describe your situation. Have you had, I mean, I don't want to address it because I can't solve it here, so it's the wrong place to do it. But have you been running a music venue for a long time?
Yes.
So you'd be grandfathered in. Nobody would say anything.
But where
No one
does
would
it say?
say it.
But
It already says you're
But the language is loose. You
Well,
might.
Because
It
that's why
depends.
you pick up the phone and call Carl and said, here's what I do, here's what I want to do, and he'll ask if you've been doing it all along. I mean, there are plenty of other venues.
So this has been an argument that the planning commissioners have repeated several times in the past, that people will be grandfathered in. However, we have several anecdotal cases within the community now of people who've been hassled over structures or a driveway, that was put in, maybe 3 years ago, maybe 10 years ago or more. So we already have some cases around how the current land use code, that hasn't been true for some people. This idea that they're just grandfathered in. Let's say you change your land use, or you're increasing the volume of your business or something like that. You could come into essentially having to recertify. And so there are ways that even things that you've been doing for some time can put you in a precarious situation with these codes. And again, I think we just haven't had time to fully understand these consequences, and it doesn't feel right to be pushing them through very quickly when that hasn't been gone over in detail, and we haven't really put in safeguards in place to accommodate people's needs and their concerns about how these codes might be used against them. So an additional thing that I want to point out is that the county hasn't really addressed concerns that the code might be weaponized. How could that happen? Well, number one, we all know neighbors who have long-standing feuds with each other. Could the code be used as a weapon in that case? Yeah, there's cases where the current code's already being used that way. So any additional measures, we need to be cautious and make sure there's checks and balances in place. Secondly, a question of if I'm a developer and I want to buy land in an area, could I use the code to actually make people's lives difficult in an area so they let go of their land uh, for, say, pennies on the dollar? I buy that land, and then I see some kind of a appreciation in value of the land um, due to my own improvements or due to um, other improvements that are happening in the area. And without really exploring that conversation and looking at that in detail and looking at specific scenarios, it's hard to say. So, again, this is an argument for we need more time to actually understand the consequences of what's happening here and to be involved, to safeguard, to make sure we're not doing harm.
Every single category that used to be allowed by right, for example, to build farm worker housing, was allowed by right in the 2021 land use code.
Still allowed.
Now it requires a permit.
Still allowed. You just have to get a permit to be able to do it.
Yeah, but I've seen people get.
It doesn't say you can't do it.
That's not the same. That's
It is the same.
No, this is a slow process. People don't have the budget. People do not have the time.
You have to get an address. You can't just do anything you want with farm worker housing. There are certain requirements, but you can do it. It doesn't say you can't do it.
Yeah, but now we have to go through. Yeah, have the requirements.
Part of the new code is to have some of that.
So what requirements? What's required to get farm worker housing? Before you.
Well, it has to have. It has to have septic or something. It has to have water.
And if it's available, what date it's available.
Well, you have to have it. I mean, if it's.
So the Planning Commission is framing the change from allowed by right to permitted as merely a linguistic change. And I think the clear sort of concern of the citizens is that it's not merely a linguistic change, but there's actually procedural consequences to that. And that's something that we need to get more clear on and to address. My biggest question with all of this is seeing the public response that we have here. Wouldn't it make sense to slow this down and actually have a process that involves more?
We've been at it 6 years. We have a code that was passed 2 years ago. It's been implemented and used. Slowing it down would only mean more of this. And we're having a great conversation, and maybe this is how people get educated. We don't have a chance to do this. We've got people yelling at us, cussing at us, threatening us. We want to get it over and get it done with. Go on.
So these words here reveal a major reason why the public is upset about the way this is being approached. What I'm hearing as I attend these meetings, the overall sense from people is they're saying, stop. What you're doing is harming us, or we're concerned that it will harm us. And when the planning committee, the planning commission comes back and says, we don't want to slow it down, and we don't want to get feedback from the public, people don't feel like they have a voice in this process. They don't feel like they're actually being represented. And the Planning Commission has criticized the response of the public as they're getting upset. But at the same time, if the Planning Commission doesn't give some kind of avenue for the people to actually have due process and to be represented by their government, then it's to be expected that people are going to be upset and they're not going to have any respect for the process. So I think that's what needs to change in order for the people's faith to be restored in this process. They need to know that they're represented. They need to know that their concerns are being taken into account, and that we're providing enough time in the process for that to happen in good faith. So if you live in Delta County and you want to get involved, the first thing you can do is get up to speed by understanding what the changes in the code are and how they may impact you personally. We've set up deltacountyplanning.com for that purpose. And there are some resources there to help you understand line by line what's changing. There's also a section that will receive input, suggestions, and comments on a line by line basis. So we're starting to collect those things. There are various groups that are organizing in the county. We're not all organized and interconnected yet. It's going to be a process of getting connected. So have faith and have some patience as we work to do that. And I just want to close by saying, this might be an opportunity for us to actually increase the level of involvement and awareness, and to start to create a government that works for us here. And very positive things could come of this if we get involved and make this process something that we can be proud of. Thank you to all the people of Delta County who have shown up at these meetings and have shown your interest and your passion in standing up for your rights. I want to say thank you to the Planning Commission for the most part keeping your cools and keeping a professional environment there. Thank you especially to Tom Kay. I know you don't have an easy time keeping peace in the room and keeping order and keeping the flow of the meetings. So just want to say I appreciate what you're all doing in that regard. And I hope that we can come to a result here that does incorporate the needs of the citizens of the county, and something that we can all be happy and proud of in the end. Thank you.